Okay, good morning. Thanks for being here and joining me today. As mentioned by Christine, my name is David Nedohin, one of the founders and the president of Scope AR. So we're an augmented reality company that's developed some products that we've announced here over the last few years. In 2015, we announced the release of remote AR, so the first kind of live telepresence tool that allowed you to share video and share audio and annotate on the real world and share that with an expert and help workers in remote locations sort of have that over-the-shoulder support from an expert. We also released our Worklink product, which is designed for predefined authoring instructions. So essentially somebody being able to take whatever device they have, look at some equipment, and overlay those instructions on top of it. And Worklink is essentially a software that allows our customers to build that very easily. So we've worked in this space, and we've been a pioneer in this space, I think, probably since the beginning of really industry engaging with augmented reality. And we've seen a lot of changes, a lot of different organizations and industries be involved. We work with quite a few different industries, from automotive and utilities and energy and aerospace and manufacturing. And generally, they've all been kind of around those initial pilot projects. I mean, even starting further back with innovation teams that were really trying to explore exactly what emerging technologies were going to play a role in what their organizations did moving forward, putting those into pilot projects and starting to engage with some of the business units. The big question that's always come up, and it comes up almost, I would say, in pretty much every conversation we have, is around the actual ROI and metrics and results that organizations are getting. A lot of organizations are understanding that this is not a matter of if they're going to engage in augmented reality, it's just a matter of when. And so seeing some of those numbers start to come out and start to be released in terms of the value that's being saved is really that important next step. And that's really the elephant in the room, right? I mean, we've talked about what an impact it's going to have for a long time, but the question is really who's using it, what are they using it for, and what type of value are they seeing from integrating augmented reality into the processes and procedures and support within their organization. And so a year ago, actually, I was on a panel discussion with a Gartner analyst, Angela McIntyre, and she actually had a really interesting, I guess, sort of thought as to how the industry was going to go. And she said at that time, in 2016, all the augmented reality companies like ourselves were, I think she said in her words, were the big, nice, shiny objects that you put up on the mantle and say, cool, look what we're doing. Like, this is really amazing, right? And that's changed, and she predicted that in 2017 and 2018 in particular, that conversation and that view of organizations or augmented reality software companies like ourselves was going to change, and it was going to change for the better, but it was going to be a lot different. It was going to change for that shiny object to prove to me what you're doing and how do we measure that. And it's no longer about just putting AR up on a pedestal and being cool. It's really about measuring the impact within the organizations. And that's exactly what's happened. I mean, we really saw, as you hit into 2017, that question just being the first thing. What is the results? What are the results? How are you measuring it? What's the impact? And so she was bang on that as we get into 2018 and already seeing some of these results announced, and we'll talk a little bit about them in a moment. So that's really what this presentation is about. Is we're really excited to be able to share some of the results that have been made available. And part of the reason that results haven't been made available, there's two parts. One is because a lot of organizations are using AR for proof of concepts and pilots, and it's difficult to get true metrics that they're actually implementing into actual use cases. The other side of it is that a lot of organizations have been hesitant to release the savings and metrics that they are seeing. Sometimes it's just a matter of not wanting to share with the competition what they're doing. Sometimes it's a matter of having to validate them, because the challenge is the metrics can be so high and so impressive that it's almost unbelievable, and in some ways, and we'll talk a little bit about Lockheed Martin and what they actually announced yesterday. So we're really happy that we do have 4 customers that have agreed to share some of the results they're getting, both qualitative and quantitative, with us, so that we can make them available to you and have some more conversations about that. So Lockheed Martin, I think everybody knows who Lockheed Martin is. Unilever, one of the largest manufacturing companies in the world. You probably use their products on a daily basis and don't necessarily even know that you are. So from shampoos to ice cream bars, right? Prince Castle is a manufacturer of industrial kitchen equipment. So for the largest, one of their customers is the largest fast food chain in the world, so you can figure out who that is, as well as a Caterpillar dealer, UTE, out of India. So they've been very kind in sharing some of the results, so we thank them for that, and we'll go through them. So starting with Prince Castle, what they were doing is actually using remote AR, so the telepresence tool, as a way to communicate with their technicians. And so they have equipment all over the world, obviously. They'll often have contractors who will go in and be generalists in some cases, having to do maintenance and repairs on the equipment. And sometimes even the store employees themselves, maybe the store manager that needs to get the equipment up and running. So the equipment, for example, might be like the bun toaster. So you would see the buns go through that toaster machine, and that's an example of a Prince Castle piece of equipment. So they're trying to find ways to, because they don't have their own service team all over the world that can make accessible to that equipment, they're trying to find ways to make sure that the individual who's there to service or repair that equipment is able to do it in an efficient way. So I have actually 3 use cases. These are specifics that were provided to me by Prince Castle of examples of what they're seeing in terms of impact. So in this first use case, they used remote AR for a call of 30 minutes. And it's really important to note that prior to this call, they had 30 prior notes attached to that piece of equipment. So in other words, somebody calling in and saying, you know what, I have this problem, so it gets a note attached to it. And it's very difficult to fix or diagnose. What they found was that they'd been on site trying to fix this equipment without any real success, so they keep on calling in and having this problem. So they used remote AR as a way to connect with the technician who was on site, and they were actually able to diagnose in the very first call what was wrong with that equipment. So it actually related to 2 service bulletins. They identified it, and that technician was able to fix it on that trip. So all about diagnosing what the problem was, so essentially it could be fixed, because it's not always about fixing it if you can't figure out what the problem is to begin with, right? The second use case some comments from customer feedback. So the customers, quote unquote, a very useful and easy tool to use, and it allowed me to explain issues in minutes as opposed to what has taken weeks over the phone, right? So massive time savings on that, and not to mention a happy customer. The second use case, again, a call duration of about 35 minutes, and it had about 43 prior notes to us, and lots of attempts to figure out what was going on with this equipment. And it turned out to be a combination of software and mechanical issues. So very difficult for somebody who doesn't know the equipment to go in and figure out what's wrong. But with one remote AR call, that expert who's now sitting in the office can look over the shoulder of the technician, say, yes, I know what's going on. This is the equipment, or this is the mechanical failure you're experiencing, as well as we have some software updates to do. And they were able to complete that successfully again on that first call. So again, all about diagnosing properly so that you can fix it. Customer says a way better way than 1-800-SUPPORT, and very easy to use. So just, consistent comments about being able to dial or to support the workers remotely. So the third use case is actually probably the most interesting. They had a very, very high profile customer. Call classification was 4, meaning extremely high priority. Customer called in, actually the manager called in and said, I have this equipment that's down. I need this equipment up ASAP. And so as opposed to going through the standard process of a phone call and trying to identify and diagnose what's wrong and then send a service technician out, the manager of the store actually offered and was very upfront that I don't have a lot of technical experience, but offered to say, let's see if we can do this, and fix this right now. So they signed into a remote AR call. The expert who was in the office was able to guide the manager to diagnosing, first of all, what was wrong, but then actually doing the mechanical repairs. And they said what was challenging about it is they had to gut and take out about 40% of the actual unit in order to repair what was done. So you're talking about a very complex process. The call was an hour and a half long, and they were able to fix it first time. So extremely powerful use case. They actually had the manager of the store fix the equipment and have it up and running within an hour and a half, whereas typically that would have taken a series of calls and technicians getting out to site with the hope of fixing it. And as you've seen, that's difficult to do in some cases. So the customer says, I really like the John Madden circle and draw ability. So John Madden being NFL fans, the football ability to draw on the screen, right? And the tool is extremely useful in guiding me through the repairs. So really powerful comments from the manager of that store. So in Prince Castle's experience, they had some metrics that they were able to compile from these a series of calls, the ones that I've obviously narrowed down to a few use cases I showed you. So they're seeing 100% success on first-time diagnose, which is enormous. As you can see from a number of other calls, they've had various tickets associated with the tasks. So they're seeing 50% less service trips required as a result of remote AR because the technician can fix it because they've actually diagnosed what the problem was. And between 50 and 85% reduction on labor spend. So some really powerful numbers in terms of cost savings for Prince Castle, diagnosing equipment problems first time and being able to fix it very quickly. So significant reduction in downtime of store equipment and fixed first-time improvements as a result of proper diagnosis. So those are a few examples from Prince Castle and how they're using remote AR, one of our products, to really improve that technician support and customer support. The second example is from a company called Unilever, as I mentioned. They were using remote AR in a very large factory to be able to reduce the downtime of equipment and of machinery. And so this is a common challenge, and it's something typically we start talking about with our customers right away, is the drain of expert knowledge that's occurring just due to the cultural shift that's occurring in the workforce, so the workforce getting older and hitting that age of retirement. And they're predicting that in the next 5 years, they're going to lose 330 years worth of experience in that factory alone, so in the one factory in Gloucester, England. And so, they're looking at how they're going to manage significant downtime of equipment as well as mistakes, because that's costing obviously enormous amounts of money when you have manufacturing lines that are down. So the gentleman on the left, Gerant, is sitting in his office as sort of the expert. He's the one that has the intrinsic knowledge, while the person on the right, Chris, is sitting actually in the manufacturing plant and needing assistance. So even though they're not all the way around the world, there is significant time and challenges in getting into the manufacturing environment and being properly prepped to go in there and fix that equipment. So they were using remote AR to solve those challenges that Chris was having. So they did just a very basic analysis of what it is that they're saving. So they've estimated the downtime, the cost of downtime of equipment, the number of service areas that they have that they would service. They estimate the percent reduction in downtime, around 50% using remote AR, and translating into about an $80,000 savings per month potentially with those various lines. So an enormous number ROI of 1,700% based on the cost of the product alone. So pretty much a no-brainer when you look at ways that you can support your workers. And that's often the discussion, right? The question is, how much does this product or does AR cost to organizations? It's really about the savings that's being generated as the more important number. The second use case for Unilever is Worklink. So I've talked about remote AR. Worklink is our work instructions software. And so they actually had an intern student use our authoring software to create instructions around diagnosing and repairing specific equipment. So they selected one specific procedure, and it has to do with incorrectly fitted seals. And that's resulting to date this year of 24% of the incidents at that factory. And just of interest, that factory makes ice cream. So like the Magnum bars that you would buy at your store, this is a factory that creates those types of ice cream products. So they're lacking a lot of experience in doing this properly, and it's costing so far $120,000 this year in lost productivity or repair costs. So they're using Worklink to create a repeatable process of best practices that can be deployed to any worker to ensure that this one specific procedure of fitting the seals is done correctly. So they're seeing, right now, they're measuring exactly the dollar values associated with that, but what they can say factually is that they're seeing reduction in man hours right now, reduction in maintenance costs because things are being completed correctly, reduction in unit downtime, which is the biggest number when equipment goes down in a manufacturing line. That's significant dollars associated with that. And reduction in waste as well as line availability, right? If something's done wrong, often you have to discard the product, right? So significant waste. And they have a process they can now share with other factories. So this is the types of results that Unilever is seeing right now by using Worklink. Third example is a cat dealer out of India, UTE. They don't have a lot of high-end level or highly technically qualified technicians in the field. They're generally in the office. And what they're trying to do is reduce the downtime of their customers' equipment. So when a problem occurs and technicians on site, up until this point, they've had to send somebody out to the field to repair that equipment. They're using remote AR in order to make sure that that field worker has best practices in front of them and connected to the expert. So just as an example, they took over a 1-month period, 33 support calls using remote AR. They were able to improve first-time fixes, reduce the number of experts that were traveling to site, and see a 60% ROI on the expense associated with the cost of the product. But most importantly, they're seeing between 25 and 75% reduction in time while fixing that equipment, because you're not having that worker guess at what they need to do. You're making sure the expert in the office shows them exactly what to do and to do it correctly the first time. So sometimes it's extremely high value incidents, and sometimes it's lower value incidents, but there's a lot of them, right? And either scenario creates significant value for the organization. The third, customer, Lockheed Martin, and we have a couple from Lockheed Martin I see that are here today that presented some incredible results yesterday. For those who weren't here, I'm going to go over them really briefly. But there is going to be the video, I think, on the YouTube channel associated with the AWE 2018 that you can see the full disclosure of these results from yesterday. So manufacturing, right, they're using it, or it's being applied to multi-billion-dollar space programs. They're looking at ways that they can improve time to information. So they've broken down the process of doing something into 4 steps, OODA, so observe, orientate, decide, and act. And this technical information overhead, so the first 3 areas, observe, orientate, and decide, are really what they were trying to see if they could reduce time on, in terms of making sure that the worker that's working on the equipment has the information at their fingertips and reducing that sort of technical or information overhead. So some really, just staggering results, to be honest. They talked about yesterday reduced time to information. So that first part, that observe, orientate, and decide, between 90 and 99% reduction in that time associated with it. So again, numbers that are just staggering. But if you can imagine putting on a HoloLens or holding up a device and just seeing everything accurately laid out right on the equipment, instead of trying to look at drawings and then orientate that to the actual equipment and then make sure somebody comes in to validate that's the right thing before you finally actually act, you can see how that reduction is significant. So they're seeing reductions in the actual act part of 35 to 50%, and training in that 85% range. So some really, really powerful numbers. Reduction in time or development time of 79% as well. So they're able to use the Worklink software that we've developed in a way that is easy and scalable for their employees to create these instructions and then duplicate and modify and make them available to their workers. So just incredible numbers. And Shelley Peterson had said that we've been shocked and thrilled with the outcomes. So that's great to hear. She actually mentioned yesterday on stage an interesting story about quality assurance engineers who might be the ones that would come in and say, hang on, wait a minute, this new technology is challenging. We want to make sure we're doing things the way that we're familiar with. They said they had over 100 people that tested out the use of Worklink in this procedure, and not a single person had reservations about it. And the quality assurance engineer had actually said, you would actually have to try to screw this up to make a mistake. And that's coming from a QA engineer, so pretty great. I hope I got that story right anyways. We can't really say specifically what they were working on because that's very top secret and confidential, but in completely unrelated news, Lockheed Martin also did an article in Fast Company just on April 16th talking about how they're using augmented reality in the design and construction of the Orion spacecraft, and that they're working with Scope AR's Worklink products to help with that procedure. So you can draw the parallels there if you like. And so we've talked about Worklink and remote AR as 2 products that these organizations between Lockheed and Prince Castle and UT and Unilever have used either in conjunction or independently. And a lot of the question comes up in terms of, well, what happens when you want to use them together? And we just did, our CEO, Scott Montgomery, was just in the press conference room and announced a really big news from us, and that's the combining of these two products together now, so merging the ability to have work instructions with the ability to connect in real time with an expert, so to be able to overlay animated or annotated content right into those work instructions. So we just announced that. We're really excited about it, and we're looking forward to our customers now being able to engage in both sides of those products as one unified product. Just a little comment from the CTO of TELUS, so one of the largest communications, fast telecom company in Canada, and he had indicated that TELUS recognizes the importance of enabling our workforce with innovative technologies to ensure that work will be completed correctly the first time. The merge of Scope AR products will ensure the best practices are always available to the workforce, increasing efficiency and keeping customers happy. So all different industries, like I said, everybody recognizes that this is not a matter of if, it's just when, and I think the when is now. We're seeing organizations see true value from engaging augmented reality in some easy ways to do that, and we're happy to share more on our stories, on these customers' use cases, and how you can become involved with our products. Just come see us at booth 718, and we have a team there that would be happy to answer any questions you have. So thank you very much. I hope you're excited about these results. I know we are and our customers are, and please come see us to learn more. Thank you.